Version. On his way to Jerusalem, Jesus went along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into the village, 10 men with leprosy came toward him. They stood at a distance and shouted, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Jesus looked at them and said, "Go show yourselves to the priest." On their way, they were healed. When one of them discovered that he was healed, he came back shouting praise to God. He bowed down at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. The man was from the country of Samaria. Jesus asked, "Weren't 10 men healed? Where are they? Are the other 9? Why was this foreigner the only one who came back to thank God?" Then Jesus told the man, "You may go, get up and go. Your faith has made you well." May those who have heard the word be blessed. Thank you.
I'm not going to say it again, or should I? I really like this passage. There are so many stories in the Bible I really love. And what I really like about this one is Jesus healing these lepers. Because remember, back in the first century, if you were a leper, I mean, you were like icky. You had to live off somewhere, and they had to all go by themselves. And there's a reason for that, because leprosy was a very contagious disease. And what it looked like, it was like white growth kind of thing, and it would not only be on the top of your skin, but would get underneath. And some people even lost their fingers and toes and things like that from this disease. So people were terrified, they really were. And one of the statements that Jesus makes is, go to the priest. You know, show yourself to the priest. And, you know, people today would read this, and unless they went to Bible study or they had commentaries or things, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're getting over a cold, you have to come to me? Really? So I can check you out and say you're all right to go back to your family? Not really. That's not one of my responsibilities. But in what they call the Holiness Code in the book of Leviticus, if anyone had a contagious disease or anything that you could see, like a boil, you know, you weren't supposed to be anywhere around another human being. You were to leave your family, you were to go to some place where there would be running water, and you would bathe and pray and bathe and pray. And if you felt now that you're okay, the boil is gone, or the skin disease, or everything you had, then the priest functioned like a physician, and you would go to the priest, show the priest, here I am, you know, I'm fine, and the priest would sort of declare you healed. then you could go back to your family and your community. And that was exactly what Jesus was telling them to do. And even the Samaritan, even though he wasn't Jewish, they used most of the same scriptures that the Jews used. They also had priests, and they had the same kind of situation when you would go to your priest to be checked out. Now, this is where the fun part comes, and this is where I like it. This is another story about a Samaritan. He was the only one of the 10 lepers who had been healed that day that bothered to come back and say, thank you, I really appreciate it. The others, you assume, were probably Jewish, just because of the way that Jesus was talking. And here, this Samaritan was the one that acknowledged what had been done and was so grateful. They did not like each other. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. They were like first cousins. The Jews hated the Samaritans because anytime they were in any kind of a you might say a war or some kind of a treaty negotiation, whatever side the Jews were on, the Samaritans were on the other. When the Jewish people who lived around Jerusalem and in the Judea area were invaded by the Babylonians in the year 586. It was the Babylonians who kicked out many of the influential people. And so off they went to Babylon, where they could be watched. We don't want anybody causing any problems. And so because the Samaritans were on the side of the Babylonians, the Babylonian leader said to some of the Samaritans, look at all these empty houses here. How would you like a place? So a lot of them said, hey, this is great. Nice house in Jerusalem. So they came up from the north, went south, occupied these homes. And so when the Jewish people were finally free, thanks to the Persians, they came back. Grandma told them where their house was, right? And they, at the door and opened, hello. It was a Samaritan family who had been occupying their house. Now, can you imagine how they felt? Samaritans were not their favorite people. And so when Jesus would tell these stories and use a Samaritan as an example, and a good person, a faithful person, a person who followed God, his audience didn't want to hear it. It made them really, really upset. You don't want to elevate your enemy, do you? And that's exactly what he did. I love Jesus. I don't know about you, but I really, really like Jesus. Because he was always lifting up people who were always lowly or despised or not respected by others, and he made them feel valuable, wanted, and loved by their Creator. This Samaritan showed gratitude. And I think this is something that we all need to practice every day, of not just taking things for granted. I think I've shared with you that taking a person for granted in a positive way, I'm not thinking about a negative way. Well, if Joe signed up to be on this committee, you know he won't show up. I'm talking about a positive way, where you know that if the sun rises, that person will be there. If they say they're going to be coming, they will come unless they're dead. All right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Someone you can always depend on. And
trustworthy.
And they're often taken for granted, aren't they? You know that Joe will always show up because that's who he is, right? Or Jane, she will show up because she said she would be there at 8 o'clock a.m. and by gosh, she's there at 7:55, right? And often these people are taken for granted. The thing is, being a person who's taken for granted positively is the biggest compliment anyone can ever give you. You may not feel like it, right? Because they think, oh, everybody expects me to. But it is a compliment. It truly is. Because they know you are trustworthy. It's the way you feel about God. You can depend on God. God is always there listening to you, whether you realize it or not. God's blessing is always there with you. You don't have to say, well, maybe God won't be listening this time. No, God is always there with you. And even sometimes when you go through tragedies, it's the gratitude that really is part of the healing process. How many of you know the name Elizabeth Vargas? Friday night, 10, right? 10 o'clock?
Yes.
Right. How many of you know that for many, many years she was suffering as an alcoholic? But she was a functioning alcoholic. She somehow was able to do her program, and then when it was over, she'd just drink herself to oblivion. And this had been going on for years and years and years. And see, if it were Jesus tending to her, he wouldn't go beat her up and say, you alcoholic, you good for nothing, what do you think you're doing? Hey, no, that's not the way you heal. That is not helpful. She had people that knew her very...
ABC almost dropped her.
What?
ABC almost dropped her.
I know that. The thing is, she had people that cared about her and confronted her and made her realize that she really had a serious problem. She voluntarily, it wasn't a judge, she voluntarily went into rehab. She came out of there and found support from people who really, really cared about her. This is what you need when you have a problem. You don't need to be beaten up. You don't have to have somebody tell you what a rotten, no good person you are. You need help. And there's not probably one person here who doesn't need help in some area of their life. It may be something beyond your control. It may be a physical disability. It may be something some trauma that's happened to you emotionally. Sometimes we need help. And the way you get help is not by someone saying, well, anybody who had any sense would know how to solve that problem. That is not help. It's by people loving you and caring for you and saying, let's do this together. And so this is what happened to her. And she went to rehab. She came back. The main thing she did was she acknowledged that she was an alcoholic. And when you know you're an alcoholic, should you just drink a little tiny bit?
No.
No, because it doesn't work. You are physically addicted.
Correct.
You're not a bad person, you're just physically addicted.
Yeah.
Some people are addicted to coffee.
Or cigarettes. Or cigarettes.
Some people are addicted to chocolate.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Some people are addicted to sugar. Everybody's looking around.
Yeah, but that's a
A lot of them are
Everybody in this church
a lot of food things, aren't they?
I like chocolate.
Yeah, amen to the chocolate.
He likes chocolate.
You know, we have our problems, but if it's causing a physical disability because of our addictions, we need to stop it altogether.
Hear that?
Coffee never caused a problem. I mean, I don't get sick. I don't have a stomach ache. Makes me feel better in the morning. You know, I shouldn't be advertising for coffee, should I? But the thing is, by beating somebody up and saying, "Oh, I know about you. You have a drinking problem and you're an addict." No, it's when you acknowledge it yourself, when you own it yourself, when you say to yourself, "Look, I drink. I can't control it. If there were a bottle there, I wouldn't have just one or two glasses. I'd have the whole bottle." That's when you know that you're an alcoholic. And eventually, Elizabeth Vargas had to recognize herself in order for her to heal that she was an alcoholic, who was out of control, and she could never, ever take a drink again. That's the way you deal with it, whether it's alcohol or anything else. And she did. And fortunately, she didn't lose her job. She was able to be there. And you know, when you would see her like years ago, you never would have any idea, would you? Never have an idea that she secretly had this problem. And this is what an attitude of gratitude is about, because she was able to say thank you to the people who were supportive, not to the ones that pointed the fingers and said, "You're no good, you know, and you should go off the air, and why don't you just go and lose yourself somewhere? She was so thankful. And also, she was thankful to who?
God.
God. Because God was the one that she acknowledged, gave her the strength to be who she was and to carry on and to live a life of healing and wholeness. That's what an attitude of gratitude is all about.
Amen.
Amen.